UFC and Floyd Mayweather Jr. are discussing a deal that would bring the undefeated boxer into mixed martial arts, according to UFC President Dana White. Quote, "We're talking to Floyd about doing a UFC deal. It's real." He was talking about boxing Conor McGregor. Was that real? Have you heard Floyd talk about many things that aren't real? Yes. He usually tips his hand when he's in the media, and then that S ends up happening. We're interested in doing something with Floyd. Everything is a realistic possibility. Mayweather versus McGregor effing happened. Anything is possible. Then Dana White goes on to say, there was no way I thought that fight was going to happen, talking about Mayweather McGregor. But when you sit down with a smart guy like Mayweather advisor Al Heyman, a very intelligent guy, anything is possible. And Floyd, as much as he does the money thing and this and that, Floyd was actually very easy to work with. I was impressed. Okay. What do you make of this? There's a lot of things to say about this. Number one, this feels like it's got WME written all over it. Now, it is true that the UFC brought in James Toney at a time when they were marketing it as like literally explicitly as UFC versus boxing in the promotional videos for that contest. Speaking of which, that was in Boston, where, of course, they're heading in January. In any case, number one, I suspect that this won't happen. I don't know if you guys saw this. Jimmy Shapiro sent out some odds. He's a famous bookmaker. He has some odds on this. So the odds for Floyd fighting in the UFC in 2018, he's got it at yes, plus 500, 5-1, or no, minus 900 at 1-9. I'll take that no at minus 900. Thanks. Look, I didn't think that Mayweather McGregor was going to happen, but that seemed, if you had to ask me what is more likely, Mayweather McGregor or Mayweather fighting in the UFC, you would have to pick Mayweather McGregor for all the reasons that you know about Floyd, that he doesn't take enormous risks, that he likes to have everything on his terms, that he likes to be in control. And in the boxing realm, where he's fighting a guy who had no pro experience and could make an extraordinary amount of money, that seemed, at least in theory, more plausible than what they're suggesting here, which is going over to mixed martial arts. But to me, it seems like this has just, as I mentioned before, this has WME or Endeavor, whatever it's called now, written all over it, where they realize they don't have a ton of star potential. I mean, they've got a ton of star potential. They don't have a ton of star power anywhere on the roster currently that's actively competing outside of McGregor, but he's not actively competing. He hasn't defended his title in over a year. And they need to find whatever is the biggest possible splash they can make. This is the one that appears to be what they're trying to do. Now, I think the old UFC would have done this deal if they could have as well, but they wouldn't have. I think whatever working conditions in terms of control that would have been established before would not have been broken. Now I think they can probably break that. And this is, to me, the real litmus test about this. Who are they going to put him up against? They put James Toney up against Randy Couture. Not just a guy who was an experienced, decorated MMA fighter, but a guy who was a uniquely poor matchup for him and fought him in a uniquely devastating way. John Smith, low single, took him down, passed, choked him out. Right? That was it. No more to it than that. If they, again, I don't think that this deal will happen, but if it does, what you need to be looking for is who they put him up against. If they put him up with some donk, how when Herschel Walker would compete in Strikeforce, they'd just give him like a nobody, like Greg Nudge. Remember that? Greg Nudge? And he just ran over the guy. If they do that, then surely it can be declared without any contest that the UFC as we know it is no more. Now, I know some folks are saying that's already the case. It might be. I certainly wouldn't argue against it too hard, but I feel like there are still some remnants left of the old way of doing things that are going to die hard and have not died yet. If nothing else, if not rules, then certain sensibilities from the fan base and certain sensibilities from the fighters themselves, a certain craving for the way things should be or used to be or could be again. This would, to me, extinguish all of that. Not the use of Floyd per se, but if they gave Floyd, let's say he fought at what? Well, let's say he fought at 145, right? Or even 135. If they gave him Marlon Moraes, I'd be like, okay, all right, good. This will be interesting. But if they went and just signed some guy off the street, who was 0-1 or something, I'm not here to proclaim that would be the end of the world exactly, more so that it would be the end of any notion about what the UFC has ever been about. That's just not the way that they have historically done business. And you can say, well, those are outmoded or outdated modes of doing business. Yeah, maybe they are. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not, though. I would consider that a complete 180 from everything that they've been. They would become effectively Strikeforce in that case, right? And the thing is, you're like, well, what was so bad about what Strikeforce was doing? The argument is not that you don't want a promoter out there signing Herschel Walkers to go beat up on scrubs. It's not really that's not true. You do want that. It provides a service to the market. What you don't want is your brand leader doing that. You want an alternative to the brand leader doing that. You want a differentiation from that, because that kind of booking ultimately, I think, tells people that unless you're doing these kinds of outlandish fights, that what really is the reason to tune in? You're not really promoting a sport. In that case would be total spectacle. And again, MMA has always been partly just spectacle, and I think some reconciliation about that is due. But this would be, in the modern context, this would be a total reversal of the sensibility about what this organization has stood for, what it is supposed to be, and what kind of leadership it's supposed to provide in the MMA space. Remember, on the MMA Beat last week, I was sort of saying, like, if the UFC is not going to take care of their middleweight division, who is? They are the ones who have proclaimed themselves to be the steward of the sport. This would be not that in any capacity whatsoever.